I'm Hannah Moore, CFP, a practicing financial planner and educator. I'm on a mission to change the way people think and talk about money. Let's get started. I want to talk with you guys about this idea of expanding what's possible. Now, I know that sounds a little bit up in the clouds, but this really came about because several years ago, I realized I was asking all my clients who are coming in, what are your financial goals, right? And it seems like such a simple question. And I started noticing clients struggling with it. And lo and behold, I realized something was up. And so what I did is I asked myself that question and I realized I was struggling to come up with answers for that. Now, when I think about financial goals, this can mean a lot of things, right? My husband and I right now, we're in the process of we're van shopping in a market where vans are going crazy and all cars are going crazy right now. So I get the short-term financial goals, right? I want to be able to buy a van. I want to be able to, there's some common ones that I see that people have. But oftentimes, let me tell you what I found for myself. I found for myself that when I went down to write my financial goals, there were some that were clear, like getting a van or, having an emergency fund, things like that. But it became far more nebulous after that. It became far more challenging for me to create a financial goal. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I think this is so hard for me, and I think it's so hard for a lot of my clients as well to really articulate these financial goals. So the first thing is that we just don't know. There is so much change in our lives, right? I look at where I was 5 years ago, and we are certainly not in the place I would have imagined that we are today 5 years ago. I've just been cleaning through my office and realized I was looking at some of my goal sheets, and they're just so different. Now, part of that is, we're entrepreneurs, so, we have our own business, so we have some control over our work that other people don't. But think about how quickly life changes and how quickly life changes, especially if you're in the younger years of your life. If you're in, the first couple decades of having a career, it becomes a lot more nebulous because we don't know. I don't know what retirement's going to look like. I don't know if I should be planning to retire at 65 or 67 or 60. I have no idea. I don't know if I'm going to love my job then. I don't know. There's just so much that I don't know when I start thinking about these financial goals. Becomes really overwhelming, or at least I get really overwhelmed when I start thinking about how do we actually articulate these things. And a lot of times for me, they're kind of the larger, far off goals. Certainly there's, like I was saying, buying a van. We've been doing a lot of housework on our house right now. And if you guys are homeowners, y'all may understand that. We just bought a fence. We just, we're looking at, redoing our pergola and siding on the house, and all those things add up, right? So yes, there's these short-term goals, but these medium to long-term goals have always been really, really difficult for me. So let me tell you how I've changed my perspective, which has really kind of opened up these possibilities for me. This is what I would say is expanding these possibilities. Instead of focusing just on these goals, which change, by the way, we focus on the values of what's most important to you. So when I think about this is, oftentimes I have my clients do a values exercise for them to go over, what's most important to them in their life and their spouse's life as well. What are the key pieces that are so important to your just happiness and fulfillment in life, right? And this is where everyone is different. I've never seen two clients with the same set of values, which is really fun. I think this is really where we get to bring our uniqueness and our unique perspective of the world into our money, or our money into our perspective of the world, I guess, if you will. But really getting clear about what are those values that you have, and then focusing on those values. Because I think when we focus on the values, it opens up possibilities versus goals can narrow down, which again can be very helpful, right? We need to buy a van. That needs to happen, especially with baby number 3 on the way. But okay, so thinking about these values. So for me, when I think about my values, I think about meaningful work. That's incredibly important to me. Work that I feel is fulfilling, that I'm actually having an impact. Another value for me is creativity, right? It's I want to be able to do work where I can be creative. Now, certainly there's certain parts of my work, there's certain parts of my life where I'm not creative, and that's certainly fine, right? That's not a bad thing at all. But I want that woven into my life, right? I want to have significance and impact. That's a big deal for me. Like with the work that I do, I want it to be able to positively impact those around me. I want to leave financial planning better than I found it. I want to leave, my clients better than when they came in. Like that's hugely important to me. Freedom is another one. Family is one for me. And so when I start thinking about focusing on these values, things it presents a different light, right? So let me give you another example from me personally. So this idea of a family, right? My family is 1,000 miles away, up in South Dakota, and I'm here in Texas. My husband's family is close, they're an hour away. So it's a little bit different. But, being able to go visit family, when I look at goals and this idea of goals, if my focus is on goals, I would say I want to have 2 trips up there a year, and like these are going to be these kind of constraints. Versus saying, okay, I want to focus on the value of family, and I want to be able to take opportunities when they come. So yes, we build in structure, but we take opportunities when they come. And for us, what that's looking like is possibly going up and renting a house on a lake that's close to my family next summer when in the peak of the Texas heat. We're hopefully going to escape it to go up there, but being able to spend time with family, right? I find that goals focus us and values help expand. Both of them are important, right? Like they're both incredibly important. When I work with clients, we get clear on their values, and then that usually transitions into goals. But what's interesting is that as I continue to meet with clients, their goals change, but their values tend to stay the same. And so by focusing on these values, what's so powerful about knowing them is how clients come in and say, we had this very clear path to where I was going to be able to retire early, or I was going to be able to do X, Y, or Z. And now I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to take this other pathway. I think I'm going to shift my goals. But what's so cool and so powerful is that when we have these values, these defined values, and certainly defined values, I mean, it sounds so official, but we know what's most important to us, right? So often I can look at my clients and say, you know what? That pivot makes so much sense because you said that these 3 values are really important to you. And I see how you're living those out through those decisions, how you're shifting your goals based on your values. So our goals shift, but our values stay the same. And so by focusing on your values and being really, really clear about, what's important to us, what's important to us as a family. Both my husband and I, family is very important to both of us. This idea of freedom is really important to both of us. We've structured a lot of our work. You guys are hearing me, on a podcast or watching a video of me. That's something that, we could do in different locations, that we have some flexibility, that we could pre-record. We can, do some of these. That we're building a life around some of these ideas, and we're not holding on to them like tightly. But the goals are going to change and evolve, which is exactly what should be happening, right? So when we think about this from a financial perspective, so when I think about, going back to where I started from all of this, of I'm coming in and I realized that I was having trouble articulating my financial goals. I realized just because they weren't based on the values of that I had. And so there are certain financial principles, financial tactics, I will say, of, what we should be like, we want to be saving a certain percentage of our income towards retirement because we know that that's going to create options for us when we get there. We know that we should be, there's some like foundational pieces, right, of our financial life that we know need to be there. But as we evolve and as our careers change, as we get older, as our kids get older, as our lives change, right? As they ought to, right? Not just as they ought to, but just as they do. Life has a way of doing that. Being grounded in our values is going to be expanding what's possible. It's going to help us think bigger about everything that's happening. It's going to help us think differently about the decisions that are coming away, about the job opportunity that you may have, or about, all these different pieces. Those are going to help us think differently. And it's going to be expanding what's possible instead of limiting us in what we want to do. Because I'll tell you, the goals that I had when I was 25, I don't think that number one, I barely remember what they are. And number two, they don't fit with how my life has evolved. And I am so, so glad that I am not just trying to focus everything on those goals that I had when I was 25, and that I've allowed them to continue to evolve with me. So I encourage you, as you guys think about your financial goals, think first about what's most important to you. Think first about what are these values that you have in your life. If you have a significant other, ask them, like, what are the core pieces that are about us, that make us who we are, that make us different? They're going to be your financial filter, if you will, your decision filter. Figure out what those are, and then use that as the basis for coming up with your financial goals. And then know that your financial goals will change, right? They often change throughout life, and I think that's kind of the fun of it. So good luck as you guys think about your values, think about your goals, and hopefully expand what's really possible in your life as you go forward. Thanks for listening to this episode of Everyday Money with Hannah Moore. If you like what you heard, subscribe and check out livewealthynow.com. We have a lot more resources to help you live wealthy now.